Hey, what's up, you guys? Rasat here in Singapore. So, back on here with the Night Owl podcast, and I am kind of going over my notes from the day. Lately, I've been going back through my Robbins training because I want to make sure that I understand strategic intervention in a way that I can actually apply it into my Jirasati group. So right now they're going through the 5 love languages. The next thing I'm going to teach them is actually something from Tony Robbins, which is the 6 human needs. But in the course of that, I was actually going through a couple of case studies that he's been working with in some of the coursework that I had, and he actually explained this one quote that kind of hit me. It was a instant wake up call, if I can say it that, if I can call it that. So he says the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. And you know what? That's exactly what it is. I didn't realize how much of my traumas I had been healing. And then the healing of the trauma means that I don't get knocked over as easy, right? I can bounce back. I can recover pretty fast. I don't get stuck in my feelings anymore. I don't dwell on whatever went wrong and what I was expecting. It's almost like I've given up that attachment to what needs to be and how it needs to be in order to be able to manage change, because obviously change is the one constant, right? So when he says the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with, I really, really felt that. And nothing was more apparent than a conversation I had recently with a young client of mine who's talking about the fact that, they finally decided they think they know who they are. They have taken some time to really discover what it means to be them, what kind of identity they're trying to create for themselves, the kind of name they want to leave behind, the legacy they're trying to create, all of those things. And there were moments that they had been through where they weren't so sure if this is actually what they wanted to do. In general, yes, they knew who they were. They knew the identity that they had, their sexual preference, their orientation, all that stuff. They kind of knew. But in some cases, they weren't so sure. But how they handled that uncertainty was what determined whether they kept a peaceful life or they created more chaos for themselves. And I want to talk about that because I think it's really important. I think it's something that we can identify with through all of our lives. The idea of being able to reduce clutter, reduce noise, reduce drama, reduce chaos is a big factor in the quality of our lives, right? Which means we need to learn how to speak up for ourselves. We need to learn to draw boundaries. We need to be able to correct people without putting them down, so they understand that I'm not mad at you as a person. I'm disagreeing with something you did or something you said. Being able to effectively communicate those things really, really makes a difference when it comes to reducing the amount of drama versus creating more chaos. And I think that was really important for us to grasp. When I was talking to this young lady, she was saying that, she wanted to test the waters a little bit and really determine if this is who she is or this is not who she is. To which I wanted to let her know, hey, why do you have to box yourself in? If you're still investigating, if you're still kind of exploring and trying to figure it out, why not let it be wide open until you know for certain beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is who you actually are. This is what the preference is, and it's not going to move at all. Because once you paint yourself in, suddenly you feel drama, you feel chaos because you feel like you're lying to yourself, or maybe you imagine the whole thing. It's kind of like how we feel about old traumas. When I look back at the sexual abuse I encountered, a lot of times I went through this phase of, well, did I imagine the whole thing? Did I make it up? Because obviously the other party was not going to acknowledge the fact that this is what they did in the first place, and I was not in a position to kind of put them on blast in front of the whole world to be able to prove that that's what they did. It's my word against their word, right? So in order for me to reduce the amount of chaos in my heart, I needed to adjust my worldview, and I needed to accept the fact that, you know what, I know what happened. I was there. Whether they acknowledge that or not my problem. Whether they want to admit to it and apologize for it or not my problem. My life does not stop and wait until they acknowledge what they did wrong. There's nothing that's more true in the entire universe. No matter what you've been through, no matter how much grief you've had to deal with, no matter how many people you've lost along the way, life does not stop. It carries on. It keeps on marching. And that is probably the biggest piece of grief that we need to accept, because we want the world to stop, our world to stop. We want the rest of the world to stop with us so we can kind of collect our thoughts and then get back to doing whatever it was that we're doing. Whether we deserved it or not, whether we feel like this is the right thing to do or not, it doesn't matter. Life is going to march on. And in those cases, I feel like we really need to have someone kind of shake us a little bit and stop us and tell us, hey, you know what? Yes, life does march on, but it doesn't mean that whatever you experience is any less important. It is important. You need to realize that it's important. And you need to take the time that you need to be able to manage those emotions and understand where they're coming from and realize that, there's a part of this that you can control and there's a part of this you really can't. For instance, when I lost my grandmother, I really wanted the whole world to stop. I wanted my mother to grieve the same way that I was grieving, so maybe we could grieve together. That didn't happen. She left. I wanted her to be able to hold my hand through it, but we weren't close enough where she was in a position to be able to do that. Plus, she lost her mother. I lost my grandmother. It wasn't quite the same thing. I was hoping that at some point she would look after me because I was feeling lost. And as much as she is my mother, she lost her mother, and so she was feeling lost. Never the tweens will meet. Like, we didn't understand that we both needed different things. And we weren't at the time, because it was a crucial moment, a pivotal moment in our own relationship with my grandmother, that we weren't in a position to be able to articulate what it was that we wanted, much less sort out our feelings. So in those cases, we need to understand, yes, time will march on, things will continue changing, but I need to be okay with the fact that this is a moving being. It's not something that can stop so I can identify it and examine it and everything. It's going to continue moving and evolving. Things will continue happening around me, so I'll have to manage all of the other stimuli along with this thing that's really bothering me. What else? There was a situation where I left my husband and came back to Singapore, right? And at the time I thought, okay, I'm in a completely different country. I don't have to deal with him anymore. It should be easy to kind of pick up and start off. No, it wasn't, because I constantly had conversations with him. I constantly had conversations with the kids. They were feeding back to me what he was and wasn't doing. And that consistently affected my life. It created more chaos in my mind until I realized that, you know what? For a while, I'm going to have to put all of the communication on hold. For a while, until I can, sort myself out and get myself into a place that's a little bit more stable emotionally, I was going to have to reduce the amount of interactions I had with those people. No matter how much I loved the kids, no matter how much they needed me at the time, in order for me not to turn into some insane animal, I needed to reduce the amount of chaos in my life. Hearing from the kids about what my husband was or was not doing was driving me insane, because I was getting new information that I was not aware of before. All I was worried about was the fact that he was not very nice to me, and the kids were watching that, and I didn't think that was very nice for them, and I was not in a position while I was there to be able to sort out my mind and decide if this was a situation that I could go back to and try and manifest a solution for, or if I just needed to stay the hell away. And hearing constantly what he was doing was making me angry to the point that I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was more chaos in my world. I needed things to settle so I could make up my mind. And so this is what I'm talking about. When Tony Robbins said the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with, I suddenly realized, hey, me managing my emotions and knowing who I am and what I can and can't take, that's crucial in order for me to be able to manage change, which is AKA uncertainty. If I'm not able to manage change because I don't have a hold on myself, I don't understand myself very well, guess what? I'm going to create more drama and more chaos, and it's going to be even longer before I decide who I am, what I'm worth, what my value is, how I can contribute to society, and how to get my needs met. This was a very long rant. I am so sorry, and I really hope that you understand where I'm coming from, but this is why I teach emotional intelligence. This is why I teach the people skills that I have taken so long to discover for myself and then teach other people. Because if I can reduce the amount of noise in my life, I know I can teach you to do the same. And if you realize that you can reduce the noise in your life, that you have a say in the people that are there or aren't there, and how often, and to what extent, suddenly you have control of your life and you're no longer a victim. And that was the biggest pivot for me. I needed to realize I was not at the mercy of the life around me. I was not at mercy of the traumas that I had lived through. I could pivot the way I see the world, change my perspective, and gain a little bit more control in order for me to feel like, okay, this is my life. I'm not at the mercy of any of these things. I am not a victim here. I don't have to wait for someone else to come up with a solution. I can effectively come up with a solution for myself and create a simpler life, a more peaceful life. A life where I feel like I'm actually important because I've surrounded myself with people who feel I'm important. No, they're not yes people. They're people who will put me in my place if I step out of line, but they are people who know my worth and want to see me live up to my potential. Those are the people I need in my life. And it wasn't until I screwed it up a couple of times and created more drama unnecessarily a couple of times until I realized that, you know what? I can avoid that in the future. It wasn't until I made the mistake and realized that it was a mistake, but that I did have another choice in the matter, that I could create going forward a different path for myself. I hope this made sense, you guys. It was a lot to take in. Please drop comments in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys. But in the meantime, think about how you manage change, because how well you're able to manage change will tell you if you're creating more drama in your life or if you're effectively able to reduce the amount of drama in your life. How about that? I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.